Hi, this is historian Maxine Keoghan. Today, what I would like to talk about is a very distinctive Waterford feature, and that is Waterford Crystal. The Normans brought glassmaking to Ireland in the 1250s, but it took many more centuries before glass production came to Waterford. The first glass house was built in 1729, but only lasted 8 years. It was to take another 50 years before glass was produced in Waterford, and it was in 1783 that the Penrose brothers, George and William, petitioned Parliament to establish a factory to manufacture flint glass. With a personal investment of £10,000, they built an extensive glass factory where they employed 50 to 70 workers. They brought together a large number of craftsmen, including blowers, cutters and engravers, and one of the men they hired was John Hill of the Sturbridge Glassworks of Worcester in England's West Midlands. Hill was a key figure to the success of the company. As a compounder, he chemically mixed the agents responsible for producing crystal of a high standard. Further, it was Hill who decided to polish the glass after cutting, removing the frosted appearance. John Hill, it would seem, was more than an employee, as a few years later, when he had a serious disagreement with the Penrose brothers, he departed, and this resulted in the company being sold. In 1799, the company was purchased by James Ramsay, Jonathan Gatchell and Ambrose Barcroft. In this new partnership, Gatchell was the compounder, and it's not surprising that he in turn became the sole owner of the company when James Ramsay died. The glasshouse had gained a reputation for producing fine crystal, but sadly, in 1851, the Waterford Flint Glassworks went under the auctioneer's hammer and the business was closed. The company, like most Irish glasshouses at this time, was destroyed by the English Parliament, who had raised taxes on the manufacture of Irish glass and placed a duty on the export of glass. After the closure of the Waterford Flint Glass Works, glass manufacturing did not exist in Ireland for almost 1 century. And it was in 1947, and following the turmoil of war, that a Czech native, Charles Bacik, arrived in Ireland to build a glasshouse. He chose Waterford because of the outstanding reputation of the earlier glass factory. However, by the 1940s, the glass-making craft had been lost in Waterford and no glass artisans remained. Bacik returned to the continent and recruited 30 men, mainly from Czechoslovakia and from Italy. The 30 craftsmen arrived in Waterford and trained 100 Irish men for the new Waterford Glasshouse. Waterford Crystal, during its most successful years, employed up to 3,000 Irish people, with most of the artisans given credit for their skills and knowledge to those who came from Europe. One of the most famous artisans Bacik hired was Miroslav Havel, who had studied glassmaking at an art and design academy in Prague. Bacik had enticed Havel to Ireland by telling him of the wonderful sunshine and tropical fruits available in the southeast of Ireland. Regardless, Havel became the chief designer in what was now known as Waterford Crystal. He adapted the original Penrose designs, knitting the signature Penrose diamond shapes into a nested design called the Lismore pattern. Havel was also a chandelier maker, and in 1966 he cut the glass for the chandeliers installed in Westminster Abbey and for the John F. Kennedy Centre for the Performing Arts in Washington, D.C. As the company grew, it moved from Ballytruckle to Johnstown and then to a large site in Kilbarry in 1970. A second plant was also established in Dungarvan 5 years later, where it employed 1,000 people. The expansion of the company was primarily due to the increase in sales of their products in North America. In the 1960s, their market share increased dramatically. The company went public and Waterford Crystal dominated the glass industry. They maintained dominance of the industry throughout the 1970s, but by the early 1980s, Waterford Crystal began to face strong competition as the market for fine lead crystal tripled from 79 to 83. In 1986, Waterford Crystal purchased the fine china company Wedgwood with the hopes that a retail and distribution merger would cut costs and give the crystal a greater impact on the market. Royal Doulton was subsequently purchased in 2004, but the mergers only served to place the company into deeper financial trouble. And on January the 5th, 2009, Waterford's iconic crystal company was placed in receivership. It was a devastating blow for the workers and the people of Waterford. The company was purchased by KPS Capital, a US-based equity firm, for $107 million, and in January 2010, the company announced that it had signed an agreement with Waterford City Council to open a new Waterford Crystal manufacturing facility and retail outlet in the centre of Waterford City. The name of Waterford Crystal was synonymous with excellence, but this name was tarnished by how the company collapsed. The ex-workers were denied their pensions and were forced to challenge this decision in the European courts. In 2015, the Irish government was compelled to pay $180 million to cover the cost of the ex-Crystal workers' pensions. But sadly, by this time, some of the ex-workers had died. In the same year, KPS sold Waterford Wedgwood for $390 million to a Finnish company called Fiskars. And so, Waterford's relationship with Crystal continues. This is historian Maxine Keoghan. Thank you.